talking about the nationality of the person, you are fascinated by the imagination. Last night I was translating poet philosopher Iqbal to somebody, and he was saying the person who is thankless is the one who is lost in the universe. The person who is really one of faith, he is the one in whose consciousness the universes are lost. And my friend said, how does a poet come to that conclusion? How do we recognize the breadth of the consciousness that can take cosmologies into it? But it is by just being able to understand that we share that. But that is not happening so much in the media. That's the language question, barrier
But that's
question.
the trickiness of an intelligent mind. You can have all the same words, but you can have different contexts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I think it's, again, not to say that everything is going to become one, but continue to look at the progress. This is a progress report, in a way. We're looking at our own progress or lack thereof and say, where have we come so far in terms of language, in terms of content, in terms of design, format, addresses, addressee, all of those things, and what changes have taken place, what changes need to take place. And sometimes it's just the sense of alienation that makes a big breach, and then it becomes very difficult to bring people together. And sometimes it's the need of the Chinese government just to have the word apology in the letter issued by the United States, all right? And that rectifies everything. So we understand that, but we are also looking at the larger forms and shapes of that.
It's very simple. See, if we go in even a larger sort of a shape and form, in the words of Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet, he said, wisdom is not in words, it is the meaning within words. And if the meaning is simple and straight, the message homes in much more quicker. And that is the need of the hour. That is the need of the hour, because we are fighting a global illiteracy rate. We are fighting a situation where there is fanaticism. We are fighting a situation where there's extremism. We are fighting a race where there's poverty. We are fighting a race where there's unemployment. We are fighting a race where there's not enough food in the world.
And are we fighting those fights?
Yes,
but
this is what I'm coming to. We need to be explaining to people in the simplest possible of manners, rather than taking them to Timbuktu and then coming back in and putting in the same thing. We've got to be absolutely straight to the point, make it simple, people will respond.
Well, you see what you said earlier, the list that you gave very eloquently is the list that Willy Brandt in his book North-South, A Scheme for Survival has listed, and he has said for each tank bought, how many primary schools can be built. But they are not being built. We are buying the tanks. So therefore, the discussion of tank and school has to be simultaneously there. Gibran also said nobody could make me speechless but one who asked, who are you? So words and words of self-identity are always going to be there, and one has to look at them. One of the problems that I see in the United States, which is by Charles Taylor in his book on multiculturalism, he says, it's very easy for us to agree that we are all equal politically. But we cannot agree that all cultures living in this country are equal. And that creates a big question of larger unity within the country. And he quotes one of the writers, he says, when the Zulus produced their Tolstoy, will read him. Now, many people have commented on that says that is a Eurocentric view, first of all, to think that Tolstoy is the ultimate author, and then to think the Zulus have not produced one, and then to be the judges of whether or not they have produced one. So this is not the question of equality of a person on the street as an individual. It is the equality in a multicultural, multinational society among groups that has to be reflected on. And therefore, not only the word, meaning of the word is always sort of subject to speculation. How this speculation ties back to identity is all the question. Group identity, individual identity. And you, my friend, are not only the one reporting the identity, you are some way also shaping the identity. I'm awed by your power, and I ask you, how are you using that power?
See, whenever you're in that driving seat, the seat where you're sitting in is a very powerful seat. And this seat can do a lot of good and a lot of damage. Now, again, as coming up to, as what the lady said, I think it's up to programs like this, which can shape people's minds. Now, if we talk positive, then there will be a positive image being given outside. Now, if we go on the negative side, there will be a negative image, and then there will be further negative thoughts coming out. So I feel that, when I am perhaps sitting in that chair or something to that effect, my aim and my job is to make sure that we have to be the eternal optimists.
But I hope we are not confusing critical with negative. There's a difference between critical and negative.
No, but we can even make the critical into a positive.
That's the ultimate outcome of its process, because think and then we lead to the positive. So I hope what you do, and I see you doing it, is being critical, and then positive is the outcome that people develop on their own. And this is the whole group is here to learn. And let's take, I think we might ask Ms. Dubinsky, what are the lessons we can learn from you for the globalized village that came out of Russia or Soviet Union?
From the Soviet Union, it's been a long way, and it actually developed in a very positive way at first. The very famous Russian comic actually said that it was interesting at some point after the Soviet Union collapsed. It was more interesting to read than to live. So it was really open society. It was becoming open society. Now the recent events show where it goes, because the major network, Russian news service, that is controlled by Kremlin, all its editors, all its management was ordered to have 50% of all news positive, and to end any newscast in a positive way, and to have America's image as the image of the enemy. That's an official policy of a major network. So you can draw your own conclusions from that.
Well, what I draw, the main conclusion is that nationalism is well and alive, and drawing the lines again. But what can we draw from that in terms of that brief window that opened up? What made that window open up?
What opened what?
The brief window that, it was going to be an open society for a while. What led to that possibility?
Well, that possibility actually showed how many talented journalists there are in the Russian media, how much they can achieve, how much they can contribute into the development of the civil society, which is being suppressed now, which showed recent demonstrations in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Nizhny Novgorod. So that's what it showed. And also, that period of Russian history showed how much America lost by not understanding what it should have done to support this growth of democracy. We neglected them. We didn't help them the way they expected us to help. This notion, by the way, of not interfering into internal affairs, let the democracy grow on its ground, didn't work in Russia. They needed our help, and we didn't do it. And now what we see, actually, we see a very special way of evolving of Russian democracy, managed democracy. Do you understand what it means? I don't. So, and there is no special way for a democracy. So this period in the development of Russian media showed that there is still hope. I believe there is still hope, and I am an optimist in that regard. But currently, maybe, elections will change something, but there is not much hope in that regard. Because everything is being dictated from Kremlin, basically.
Can I wear an optimist's hat
Absolutely.
for a moment? I mean,
do.
there are two things that have happened recently that have struck me. Have you heard of the responsibility to protect? And that's a UN doctrine. Here you had a rather, and I think most people would call it dismal session, the World Summit of the United Nations in 2005. And a lot of the rather more constructive elements were discarded and watered down through the intervention of various parties, the United States, the developed